fixer-upper that looks like this, but several things are going through your head that are deterring you. 1, you're afraid you and your spouse are going to kill each other. 2, you're not handy, so you have no idea how to begin fixing up an old house. And 3, you're thinking old houses are for old people who have experience doing this, right? What if I told you you were wrong on all accounts? And to prove it, I'm going to share with you my interview with the fabulous Amy Heavilin of the blog Vivacious Victorian, who is actually restoring that very house with her own 2 hands. Listen to learn why you don't need a professional background in restoration to fix up an old house, how fixing up an old house can actually improve your relationship, how YouTube might be the best thing to happen to old houses, and what Amy and I both believe HGTV might just be getting wrong. For more information on Amy, make sure to follow her website, www.vivaciousvictorian.com.
Hi, Amy. I'm so excited to be talking to you. So you live in Franklin, Indiana, in
Yes.
what I can only describe as my dream house. It's this gigantic Queen Anne Victorian. You have a turret, you have a balcony, you have a huge front porch, you have a sweeping grand staircase, pocket doors, a butler's pantry, the works. I can't even honestly contain my jealousy. And you had actually been in love with this house for quite some time, actually before it popped on the market. Can you tell me what you felt like when you first stepped inside of it after having dreamt about it for such a long time?
Oh, sure. So we moved to Franklin 9 years ago. I'm a high school band director, and so I got a job down in this area, and so it's always good for band directors to be close to their school. And we loved Franklin because it just has the most charming downtown area and all of these amazing old houses. And, you know, we've always loved old houses. So we bought one, and we bought a folk Victorian that was built in 1875, and we loved it. And we really sort of thought that was going to be our forever house. I mean, it had almost everything that we wanted in a house, and it was wonderful. We did a lot of restoration to it. But there are about 4 or 5 houses maybe in town that we also just really, really loved. And they were sort of these are our 5 houses that if for some reason they ever come on the market, we'll go look at them. We probably won't buy them, but we will go look at them. And this Victorian that we live in now was one of those. And it was a little run down on the outside when we moved here to town, but still, you know, the turret and the balcony and it just the roof line is wonderful. I mean, it's like, I always say it's like some architect got dared to put as many different roof lines in one house as they could. So,
nice.
Yeah, so there are a couple houses in town that we just absolutely love. And this one came on the market, and it was ridiculously cheap. I said, let's go look at it. And my husband said, no, absolutely not. We're not. Exactly. He's like, we're not going to look at it. He's like, if we go to look at it, we're going to buy it, and we're not in a position to buy it. In fact, we had just a month earlier had bought the house next door to our folk Victorian, which was a little teeny cottage. The restoration of that's on our blog. And we thought, let's be landlords. This will be really fun. So we bought this house it was in foreclosure. It was so cheap, and we restored it. And then a month later, the Queen Anne came on the market. And so my husband said, we've already taken our real estate gamble for the month. So we are not going to buy another house. And if we go see it, we're going to buy it. And I said, fine. Okay, that's logical. So we just let it lie. And I was just really hoping that somebody wonderful would come and buy it. And then we went my family has a place in Ocean City, Maryland, and we drove out there, which is about a 13-hour drive. And on the way home, I was looking at houses because it's what I do. And I said, okay, the Queen Anne just dropped in price, and it's even cheaper than it was before. We need to go look at it. And he said, okay. He's like, if you're really serious about this, we can go look at it. I said, look, this house is so cheap that I was like, there's something wrong with it. So I was like, let's just go see it, and we'll go figure out what's wrong with it. I go, and then, you know, if it's a big enough deal, then I'm going to be fine not buying this house. But I don't think I'm going to be fine not seeing this house and seeing the inside.
Do you mind my asking, Amy, what it was listed for?
It was listed for $118,000.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Right. So we started talking about it, and we said, you know, let's go look at it. So that was maybe 2 hours into our drive home from Maryland. And by about hour 6, we had contacted our realtor and said, we want to go look at this house, and we had an appointment set up. And by hour 10, we had a list of everything we would have to do to our full Victorian to get it on the market to sell it. So this was before we even stepped inside of it. And
so you knew this was going to happen. You're like, we're going to see this house and we're going to buy it.
Well, I don't know if we knew we were going to buy it, but it's kind of how I operate. I don't really go, there's no maybes for me. For me, in anything. If we hadn't bought the house, I still would have had the list of everything that we were going to do to it, because that's just the way my mind works. Our realtor, the first time he took us into houses, every single house he thought I wanted to buy, because I was already talking about furniture and what I would do and all of these different things. And so that's just how my mind spins. So we got home and we went to go see the house, and because we needed to see what was wrong with it. And it was in foreclosure. It had been vacant, we think, for about 4 years. And so we went to go see it. And the realtor pictures online were awful. Especially once we got inside the house. They were awful. There was no picture of the staircase. There was no picture of the woodwork. So we had no idea. We had no idea what the inside of this house looked like. And honestly, whoever did the foreclosure, if they had a photographer worth their weight in anything, the house, I think, would have been sold in 5 minutes. Because if you see the staircase, how would you not buy the house? So our realtor is about 5 minutes late, and so we get up on the porch, and there's no curtain, so we look in the window, and I see the staircase. Doug's looking around the other side. He's looking at things that are important, gutters and, stuff like that. And I look inside and I see the stairwell, and I just went, and he goes, we're buying this house, aren't we? He's like, I don't even know what you just saw, but we're buying this house, aren't we? I said, yep, we're buying it. I said, I don't care. I was like, I don't really care what's wrong with it. We'll fix it.
That's awesome.
So he comes and looks at it, and he's like, okay. So then we go inside and we go through the house, and we noticed on the outside that there was a lot of damage to the outside of the house. And you could pick up pieces. I had pictures from the day we went to look at the house, and Doug had slate roof tiles in his hand that had fallen to the ground. There were giant pockets of slate roof that were missing, and the outside had an extraordinary amount of damage to it. And so we went through the house, and there were rooms that were fine, and then there were rooms that, the plaster was coming down, giant holes in the ceiling, lots of things. And we looked at it since we had restored houses before, and we're like, this is just all, put a roof on the house and it'll be fine. This is all just water damage. And you can fix walls and you can fix ceilings. There's a lot of things that's easy to fix. And the house was big enough that we were like, well, we can live, there's enough room that we can live in the houses, the parts of the house that aren't destroyed, and while we fix everything else up. And, the bones were good. The woodwork hadn't been painted. The floors were in good shape, except for where there was water damage and there was rot. But everything to us was fixable. But we could easily see where other people coming through the house would go through it and say, oh my gosh, this is too much work. This house is a mess.
Let me pause there for a minute, because I think this brings up a really interesting point, and one of the reasons why I absolutely love reading your blog is that my assumption is that you guys are totally self-taught in terms of renovation, that neither one of you actually has a professional background in this. And what I love about you, and my interview with Ross McTaggart, he mentioned the same thing, is that you're a young couple and that you do this together, and that you are self-taught and you actually are a team working on these houses together. And I know so many people around my age, your age, 30-something-ish, who would love to be able to take on this kind of project, but wouldn't even know where to begin. And I feel like you are the perfect person to lend some insight into how you got into it, and it actually can be done. Can you elaborate a little more on that?
Yeah, absolutely. When I student taught, I used to live in Ohio, and when I student taught, I lived in this really quaint little town called New Philadelphia. And it is just filled with picturesque, amazing old houses. And that's when I started to fall in love with old houses. And first I fell in love with the houses that were just beautiful, that would just be on a magazine. And then I started to see the houses that were sort of crumbling and thought, I could see how beautiful they should be. They just weren't. And so we bought a house when we first got married in New Philadelphia, and we only lived there a couple years until we moved out to Ohio. And that house was already done. We painted some walls, and that was really it. And then we moved to Indiana for my husband's job. We lived in Speedway, Indiana, which is this little historic neighborhood that's about 3 blocks from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So we could hear, you can hear the Indy 500, it's when they're practicing, you can hear the cars from inside our house. But if you were standing on our front porch, you wouldn't know the track was that close. And so that house, there was on the first floor, it was a 1930s craftsman bungalow, super cute. And on the first floor, there was a bathroom, which was great, because we all know that old houses having a first floor bathroom isn't necessarily something that happens. And but this bathroom was a closet, and someone had taken a closet and turned it into a bathroom. Like literally, you had to reach over the toilet to wash your hands in the sink. It was, maybe like 3 feet by like 3.5 feet. I mean, it was tiny. And it had wallpaper on it. And so we wanted to take the wallpaper down because it was awful. And whoever had put it up incorrectly. So half of the wall came down with the wallpaper. So we called someone out.
This is happening in my own house right now. So
right. Because you were talking to me about wallpaper steaming, and I was like, yes, it's exactly what's happening. So we called someone out to look at it and said, can you fix these walls? And he quoted us somewhere around $2,000 for this little 3x3. No, this little 3x3 room. Now, we didn't know anything from anything, but we thought that sounded a bit high. Now, clearly, knowing what we know now, this was someone who probably just saw 2 people that didn't know what they were doing and thought that they could, make some money off of us. And so Doug said, and this honestly has been our mantra the entire time. Doug said, if I buy $50 worth of material, I think I can do this myself. He goes, and if I can't, we're out $50. Who cares?
Right.
And I said, okay, sure, let's do this. So he started researching, how you skim coat walls. What do you do? What's the method? And this, it's really our process. He researches everything, almost to the point that it drives me just a little bit batty, because he will research every single way that a project could possibly go wrong and how to fix it. Whereas I'm like, just start it. And if something doesn't work, we'll figure it out then. So it's a good pair because he slows me down and I speed him up. And in the end, we get something I think that works pretty well. So he researched how to do that bathroom, and it took forever. I mean, I don't know. I feel like the toilet was sitting in the middle of the little library room that it was attached to for 5 months or something while he worked on this bathroom. But in the end, it was great, and it worked, and it was beautiful, and it was wonderful. So that was kind of the approach that we took. Both of us aren't afraid. If we get in over our heads, we call someone to come and help us. And we'll hire someone if we need to. It very rarely happens because, we use books. There's so much on the internet these days where you can watch how-to, and you can have people give you ideas or thoughts or what went well, what didn't go well. There's so many ways you can review products. I literally don't know how people did this before the internet existed. I don't know. But, if we're out somewhere and we have, we see a stack of old house magazines, we'll pick them up and we'll keep them. And we sort of keep a running library of different things. And we've got books for bathrooms and books for kitchens and all of that. And he researches, I come up with the idea, he researches how to do it. And if we get in over our heads, we call someone. And if we have to call someone, Doug stands over their shoulder and watches and asks them questions and says, how are you doing this? Why are you doing this? It's worked, and I think the biggest thing, is don't be afraid to fail because you're going to. There's going to be things that don't work and you're going to have to step back and you're going to have to look at things. And if you're going to get really frustrated by the process, then you're going to get really frustrated. We'll have moments of that, but we know it's a process and we know that we learn from it. And that's always been okay for us.
And you wrote an article for CIRCA recently about why restoring a house can be a very romantic thing. And you mentioned that you are on a mission to dispel what you call the HGTV myth, which is that restoring a house or taking on any sort of renovation is an automatic death blow to any relationship. I completely agree with you, but I would like to hear from you what you mean by that.
Well, I understand, like, I totally understand what the purpose of TV is. It's to create drama and all of that. And I do think that this trend is starting to flip a little bit. I mean, if you look at Fixer Upper and if you look at Old Home Love, which if you haven't seen that show yet, you should. It's great. And you're finally starting to see couples that work together and that don't fight when they work together and that they find joy in what they're doing. And I'm excited that those shows are really popular now because, you know, there are other shows where you can tell that they pick out things to watch people fight about. And that to me makes me feel very uncomfortable because I've said for years that I think that House Hunters, and there should be a show that combines House Hunters and Divorce Court. And it would be the best show in the world because I just watch some of those shows and I think, wow, if you're going to fight about all of these little things, then how does this work? And I know so much of that isn't true and it's manufactured to get people to watch to see who wins. But I think in the end, what should win are the houses and the design and the feeling of being in a house that you love. And so
in a way, that's a good point that you bring up, that really in a way hurts the cause of renovating houses because so many people go into this scared that it's going to just basically be the end of everything for them.
Right. And we have people that tell us all the time, oh, if my husband and I did this, you know, we would be at each other's throats. And I think, well, I think if you do it the wrong way, but, you know, we talk about things with each other. He doesn't always understand. Like, I'll say, hey, let's do this. Like, what do you think about painting the walls black? I'm painting the walls black in this bedroom we're working on. And he looked at me like I had 7 heads when I told him that. He's like, this sounds terrible. And I said, no, seriously, it's going to be fantastic. Just let me do it. He's like, well, I'll let you do it because every time you have an idea that I think is terrible, it ends up great. He goes, I just think it sounds terrible, but go ahead. And I did it. He's like, this is awesome. So, you know, we totally trust each other. Or he'll start talking about something really super technical because he's an engineer and just the idea, he's a software engineer. So, I mean, it's not like he's building houses, but he still has that brain that works in that way. And so he'll explain things to me and I'll say, you know, okay, whatever you want to do, I totally trust you. I have no idea what you just said. And it works. I think if you don't argue as a couple in other facets of your life, then you shouldn't argue when you're doing a home restoration. But I also understand that there are people who can't live with dust and they can't live with clutter and they can't live in a construction zone. And that's the part that I think that he and I deal with really, really well that I could understand that other couples maybe wouldn't deal with.
Right.
And not having a kitchen. Like, we didn't have a kitchen for 6 months. And, you know, on HGTV shows, they'll say, we haven't had a kitchen for 2 weeks and we're about to kill each other. I'm like, really, 2 weeks? Like 6 months? And we were like, what can we make in the crock pot next? You know, we thought it was an adventure. And maybe that's just, I don't know, now that I'm talking about it, maybe it's just all in your attitude and your perspective and how you look at things. You know, if you approach it with, it's going to be awful, then it's going to be awful. If you approach it as, this is going to be really fun to figure out what.
Yep.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, Amy, so I have two kind of fun questions for you then.
Sure.
On this topic. Tell me, what do you think, and you can think for a second, is the most meaningful thing your husband has taught you about life through the process of renovating houses with him?
Oh, that's a really good question. You know, I think that probably it's okay to step back and look at what you're doing and to think about where it's going to go before you actually start something. You know, I am super impulsive. You know, I will just do something because my gut says that that's what I'm supposed to do. And I think that he's taught me that, you know, it's okay to you're not wasting time by spending time thinking about the process and how to do it right. So I think that's probably it. Just that it's okay to slow down. It's okay to be me, and it's okay for me to be energetic and to get really excited and to want to start now. But, I think that's probably it.
So to flip the question on its head, good answer. What do you think he would say is the most meaningful thing you've taught him?
Well, I think I'm still trying to teach it to him, honestly. I don't think he's gotten there yet. But, the way that he likes to describe us is that he lives inside the box. And, he can only think inside the box at all times. Whereas he tells people that I've never stepped foot in the box and I don't even like to look in the box. So I think he would probably say that what I teach him the most is to try to think of another way to do something. And in an old house, you don't know what you're going to get. When you open up, if you say, I want to put a sink here, and you open up a wall, you don't know what you're going to find to know if it's even possible. It's like that scene in Apollo 13 where they just dumped everything that was on the spaceship onto a desk and said, here, make this work. That's what an old house is all of the time. You have to figure out ways to work with the stuff that you have. And I think that what he would probably say I do the most for him is he wants to do something logical, and I force him to look at things creatively because there's 9 other ways that aren't logical that actually would work. He still likes to live in the box. I don't think I've pushed him outside of that, but I think he at least has put a window in the box to look outside a little bit.
I hope it's a stained glass Queen Anne style window that matches the house. Yes, good.
Absolutely.
There's one picture of you on I was scrolling through your blog before this phone call, and there's one picture that I always go back to whenever I look at it because I think it really strikes a chord with me. It's a picture of you in your wedding dress standing in front of what I believe is your first house.
Yes.
In New Philadelphia, Ohio. And there is something about that picture, Amy, that it's like I want to cry when I look at it. I feel like it's sort of this symbolism of you and your husband. You're kind of bringing back this notion that it's so old-fashioned yet it's so modern at the same time that you get married and then you literally make a home for yourself with your own 2 hands. And I think this is just such a beautiful statement that you've made. I meet so many young people often these days, and I've mentioned this to you many times before, that just are really afraid to jump in and do what you've done. And I think that you are such an inspiration for so many people.
Well, that's just lovely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. But I really mean it. And I guess I would sort of end this interview, which has been absolutely fantastic, and I want to thank you so much, with your last bit of advice for anybody who is really scared to take the plunge. What is sort of a big piece of advice that you'd offer?
Well, it's funny.
Especially to younger people.
Right. No, I totally get it. That picture that you're talking about, my friend Adam took that, and I think that the funny thing about that picture is that we got married in December, and when we were outside the house, I wanted to take pictures outside the house of me in my wedding dress. And my friend Adam, who's a photographer, came and took pictures of all of us. And it was in December, but it was really pretty warm. But there was this woman across the street who she was my neighbor, but I didn't really know her. And she was outside screaming at us that why was I outside in my wedding dress in December? I was going to be so cold. And it's December, and she's going to be cold, and she's going to get sick on her wedding. And so that picture looks so serene, but there was a woman totally screaming the whole time that picture was being taken.
You're kidding me.
No. And so, so I think maybe that's probably some of the advice that I would say is that sometimes when you look at something, like if you look at someone's blog or you look at design magazine pictures, you look at it and you think, wow, this is someone that has everything together. You look at that picture and you think it's so serene and it's so lovely, but you don't see what's outside of that. And I think that if you're willing to accept the craziness that's outside of those things, and I think, you did a feature on Ross, and Ross's website is so wonderful because I think that he he shows the frustrations of a house, and he shows the end product that's so beautiful, but he also is really, really honest about it. And so I think the biggest advice that I would have is don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to really openly communicate with the people around you, whether it's your spouse or your family or your friends or whoever, whatever network that you have to lean on. Let yourself know that your house doesn't have to be a magazine. It doesn't have to be a TV show. It doesn't have to be the picture perfect inside the frame, because what's outside of the frame might be crazy, but it's real and it's yours, and you just need to own that. Find the things that make you happy and put that into your house. If you have a room and it doesn't make you smile, then put something in it that makes you smile, whether it's a piece of art or whether it's a piece of furniture or whether it's a color or whether it's getting sunshine to come in the room, whatever it is. And if you can, when you start restoring a house, make something yours right away. Like, we did our kitchen right away because we love to cook. And I love to bake. Doug loves to cook. And so we wanted a space that no matter how crazy the rest of the house got, we could feel like we were at home, and it gave us hope for the rest of the house. If you think your house is going to be restored in, 3 weeks, that's not going to happen. So you need to find ways to love the process, love yourself through the process, love the house through the process, and get a network of people around you that support you. And that's honestly the thing that has happened with blogging about the house that I never anticipated. I thought it was going to be like, hey, I'm going to tell stories and show my friends and family what I'm doing with my house. It never occurred to me that people that I didn't know were going to latch onto it. And it really didn't occur to me that I was going to latch on to so many other bloggers to go, oh wow, what they're going through is what I'm going through. I'm not alone in this process, and it's totally doable, and it's really fun. So, just don't be afraid to fail. Don't take on too much. Don't try to be an expert. But along the way, you end up becoming an expert in so many things. So,
can you think off the top of your head about specific comments that people have given you, like someone completely out of nowhere that said, they told you something that you thought was very heartwarming about what you're doing?
Yeah, well, I've had people that have told me that, we're going through the same process, or, you tell a horror story about, a pipe bursting and, a room flooding, and they'll have their stories about what's happened to them. I got trapped in, this I think was on Facebook, but I got trapped in a bedroom in our house. The doorknob broke, and I got trapped on the 3rd floor, and Doug didn't find me for an hour because he couldn't hear from the top floor to the bottom floor. And people would say, oh yeah, I got trapped in this, or I fell through my floor, or, so it's little things like that. And then, or I've had people that, and I think actually this was on one of my posts that I did for CIRCA, where someone said, I've been thinking about buying a house. In one of the comment sections, they said, I've been thinking about buying a house or buying a church that they wanted to turn into a house. He said, I had no idea where to start or what to do, but this is making me take a step forward to think about doing it. And that to me makes me so happy, because, if I can make somebody not be afraid of the process, then that's just so wonderful to me.
Yeah, it's like you've saved another house by inspiring someone to,
Because I don't have the money or the time to save every house. So if I can get other people to spend their money and their time to save other houses, I will be thrilled.
Now, speaking of time, how do you have the time to do all you're doing in the house, work a full-time job, and have such an incredible blog going at the same time?
I don't know. People ask me that all the time, and I don't really know the answer. Doug said, actually, someone asked us this question this weekend, and one of my band student parents was asking us the same question, and Doug told him, I'm just like a hummingbird. I think that's the other way that we're different as well. If I am not constantly busy, I feel like I'm wasting my life away. So I am always I don't sit down. I don't sit down and read. I'll have 2 weeks in the summer where I'll just do nothing, but I can't. I don't like to stop, and so that's That's something like I'm very list oriented. I have lists of lists of lists. And I think it's what keeps me sane. I mean, I think that having a hobby or a passion that's totally different from what I do. And my job is very creative. I mean, I'm a conductor and I work with students that are amazing. And I love conducting music. And that's a very creative thing. But when I come home and I can hit walls with hammers and I can do plumbing and I can do electrical, it's so different, but it's still creative. And I think it just fuels me in a really different way. And I think that when you find something that you love, you just have to do it. And so that's where I am right now. I'm just doing what I love. And if I start to love something else, I'll start to do that. But so far I haven't stopped loving this at all. So
well, it seems like it's going to keep you busy loving for a very long time.
Yeah.
The old houses are the gifts that keep on giving, as you say. Well, Amy, you've been awesome, as I knew you would be. And I am going to include all the information to follow you on social media and on your blog in the information below this video. And I just wanted to say thank you again. This has been very inspiring, and I think a lot of people are going to learn a lot from it.
So good. Well,
for taking the time.
I love talking about my house, so thank you for featuring, and really thank you for what your site does in connecting people and being able to, like, I love being able to look at houses across the country and peek inside them and get some thoughts and ideas, and I mean, it's just great. So keep that up too. I love it. So thank you for that.
I certainly will. Thanks again, Amy.
I would love to hear from more young people taking on restoration projects. If you fit that bill, please get in touch with us. Amy, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. If you're as inspired as I have been, please make sure to check out CIRCAoldhouses.com to find the fixer-upper of your dreams. And if you like this video, please make sure to give it a big old like and add your comment in the comment section below. And make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more old house videos just like this one. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week.